Israel's elections are 42 days away. And joining me now to talk about this latest controversy are Elliott Mendes, a Middle East expert with the Israel Project, and Dr Mandel, director of the Middle East Political Information Network. Good to have you both with us. All right, Eric, let's start with you, because this push and pull between Israel having a religious identity, Israel being a state that's governed by Jewish law, and being a more secular state has been a predominant theme for years now, practically since the establishment of the State of Israel. And it's always been a big issue in elections, and it's being brought to the forefront now by Smotrich. He wants to turn Israel more into a Jewish state. Why is he making these comments now?
Well, I think Bibi has pushed these right-wing groups together, and they have a much larger voice than they would have. He put them together because he didn't want to have any wasted votes, because he knows that they will align with him. Lieberman has sucked all the oxygen out of the air, taking away from groups like Blue and White and others. And he's done this simply for political gain, because he is looking for some way to maneuver to be, as everybody keeps saying, the kingmaker, for some path that he can become prime minister.
Smotrich?
No,
Lieberman
to become prime minister. I think Smotrich is just playing right into Lieberman's hands. And Lieberman does have a point. Most of Israelis don't want this restrictions on Shabbat law, don't want what's going on conversion. They don't want DNA tests to prove that you're a Jew. And they also know that many of the ultra-Orthodox, not the religious Zionists, are people who are non-Zionist and don't fight. So he is worried. He's taking advantage of the situation, and he sees this as Bibi's Achilles heel, being so aligned with the ultra-Orthodox.
Elliott, again, Smotrich saying he wants a Torah-run state. Before we talk about the impact on Lieberman and Netanyahu, why do you think Smotrich is making these kind of comments again and pushing so hard with this agenda, keeping in mind he is the Minister of Public Transportation? So here saying that he wants to continue making sure that public transport does not run on Shabbat, on the Sabbath.
I think that after the elections in September, these comments are going to be viewed as self-inflicted wounds. The United Right Party is not going to be better positioned to form a coalition with Netanyahu by trying to pick up seats from Shas or UTJ. So why they're pushing this agenda when Lieberman is gaining in the polls by riding the secular versus religious divide is it's hard to contemplate that there's a real strategy behind this other than he's speaking off the cuff.
Okay, and as we mentioned, Elliott, this does benefit Avigdor Lieberman because he has long been pushing back against the religious parties having too much control over Israel. One of his big issues, one of the issues that led to the failure of a coalition government being formed, was him insisting that ultra-Orthodox Jews no longer be exempt from military conscription. So if this does bolster Lieberman's supporters, what does that mean for Netanyahu then? Because it puts Lieberman once again, perhaps, in another powerful kingmaker position.
Yeah, I think that this is bad for Netanyahu and his hopes of retaining the prime ministership to the degree that Lieberman is once again the kingmaker coming out of the September elections. The public's not going to have any sort of willingness to go to another round of elections. And if Lieberman is going to be the guy who's going to be able to say what the next coalition looks like, and Gantz and the Blue and White Party are going to remain adamant that Netanyahu not sit in there, then they're going to then despite what we've seen in the last week about pledges to support Netanyahu after the elections from Likud, they're going to force Likud into a reckoning about what does the future of the government of the country look like, and are they really willing to stick with Netanyahu, even if it means the possibility that another coalition might not be able to be formed.
So, Eric, do you agree that this may put us back to square one politically in terms of the ability to form a coalition government, and that ultimately Netanyahu himself, not necessarily the Likud party, but Netanyahu himself could pay the price?
Well, I'm going to be unconventional wisdom. I think one of the things that Bibi has up his sleeve is possibly to join in a coalition with Labor. And Labor has brought in Gesher, which is a party that came from the center-right. I think that is a possibility. I can tell you firsthand that I know that Blue and White has actually reached out to ultra-Orthodox. They've reached out to Lieberman. Everybody is trying to maneuver to try to figure out something. And we also heard that Rivlin, the president, supposedly, even though he denied the story, is not going to let Bibi and Likud go back and call for another election, they're going. If the mandate is to go to him, then he'll give it to blue and white.
He'll give blue
Gantz.
and white a chance to form a coalition government. All right, thanks so much for your analysis, Eric Mandel, Elliott Mendes. Appreciate it.